Let's do a step-by-step real-time walkthrough of exactly how to use the EveryDollar budgeting app to help you reach your financial goals as fast as possible. All right, so I recently made this video on exactly how my wife and I do our budget, including the tools that we use and the methodology behind that. And I also made this recent video on the EveryDollar budgeting platform in more of a review style. But today I want to do a no-cuts demo style video walking you through exactly how to use this budgeting app to its full potential. I want to be clear that I'm not associated with EveryDollar in any way, shape, or form. I just really like this platform. So if you do have EveryDollar, then definitely sign into your app so that you can walk through this video with me. And I will link to those previous videos down below the like button. But again, today I want to specifically do a step-by-step demo style video walking you through each menu. So let's hop into my EveryDollar budgeting app and get started. All right, so when you first download the app and get your account set up and all of that good stuff, you'll be brought to a page that looks something like this. And what I've done in my case is gone all the way back to May of 2022, which you can see in the top left-hand corner here. And the reason for that is I just want this to look exactly like how it will look for you when you're just getting started. So to create your first budget, you're going to click the Create My Budget button. And I guess I should mention at this point that EveryDollar is completely free and there is a premium version, and I'll cover what you get for that later in the video. But everything that I'm about to show you is completely free. So again, this one is kind of a no-brainer if you've been looking for a good budgeting app. Okay, so after you click that Create Budget button, it's basically going to give you this rough template, and you can see at the top you have your income, which is where we're going to start next, and then below that you have all of your expenses. So you have giving, saving, housing, transportation, food, personal, lifestyle, health, insurance, and debt. Now again, it's going to start off by giving you all of these basic canned categories, most of which will probably apply to you, but you can easily delete or add categories just by swiping over to the left and selecting delete, or you can hit add item and create an entirely new line item in your budget. All of this can also be accessed from the desktop platform, which I'll show you at the end of the video, but the beauty of this tool is that you can budget right from your smartphone, so that's why we're specifically going to focus on the app in today's video. All right, so heading all the way to the top of the screen here, first of all, in the top left corner, again, you have your month. So currently we're on May of 2022 for this particular demo. So if you just select the month that you want to work on, so in our case, we're going to select May, and then you have planned, spent, and remaining tabs at the top of the screen, and we'll talk about what each of those means, but first we want to start off on the planned tab, because this is where you're actually going to create your budget. So as is the case with any good budget, you have to start with your income, because without income, you can't take care of any of your expenses. So in this case, it defaults to paycheck number 1 and paycheck number 2, but you can just click on the text there, and you can change this to whatever you want. So let's just say, in my case, this is employer paycheck number 1. Then you're just going to click done, and you can head back out to the main screen, and let's just change this to employer paycheck number 2. So in my case, I get paid every other week, so that's why I put 2 paychecks in here for the month. But what I'm also going to do is add my wife's paychecks as well as what I pay myself out of this YouTube business that I run on the side. All right, so now that we've got all those categories set up, we're now going to input what we expect each of those paychecks to be. So again, as I talked about in my full review, EveryDollar uses what's called zero-based budgeting. And without getting into it too much, it basically means that you want your sum or total at the end of the month to be 0. So you basically want to utilize and assign every dollar a purpose. And you can see at the top of the screen, it has the little green check mark, and it says it's an EveryDollar budget. And that's basically how you know that you have gotten to that zero-based budget. But as we start to add income and expenses, that is going to fluctuate back and forth, which again, you'll see in a second. All right, so now let's input those amounts. So you're just going to click on the dollar amounts, and let's say my first paycheck is $1,200, and my second paycheck is $1,200. And again, you're just making a best guess here, and let's say my wife's paycheck is $1,400, and same for paycheck number 2. And then out of my business each month, this is our largest source of income. So this month, let's say I plan on paying us $10,000 out of the business. All right, so scrolling down from there, we have the giving category, and there's a reason that this is at the top of this app and it cannot be moved anywhere else. And that's because after you have your income, you should prioritize giving. And I know that that is not the topic of today's video and a very personal decision, but there's a reason that it's at the top here. So I highly encourage you to slice out even a small piece of your budget to give. So you can see the two default categories here are church and charity. So let's say in our case, we give about $500 each month to our church. And let's say we give another $500 in just general charities and causes that we feel are worth giving money to. Scrolling down from there, we have the savings category, and this is where you're going to set up what's called funds. So in our case, this defaults to emergency fund. So what you're actually putting in the planned tab is what you plan to contribute to that fund this month. But if you actually click on this line item and select the fund option, you can actually input exactly how much money is currently in this fund and how much you plan to contribute this month. And of course, you can also input how much you plan to spend out of this fund this month. But in this case, because it is an emergency fund, hopefully we don't plan to spend anything. So let's say the goal amount for our emergency fund is $30,000. And let's say that this month we plan to contribute $2,000 to that emergency fund. Now, as you'll see later in the video, when I flash forward to our current month, we actually have already fully funded our emergency fund. So if that is the case for your emergency fund or any other savings fund, you'd actually just input 0 in here. And then if you hit done and go back out to the main screen, you'll see that that doesn't actually subtract anything from your budget because you're not contributing any additional money to that fund since it's already fully funded. I know that may have gotten a little bit confusing, but for another example, let's say you add line item, and let's say this is a car fund and you're saving up for a car. And again, if you then click on that line item that you just added, you can then make this into a savings fund. So we're going to select make this a fund. And then again, let's say we want to contribute $1,500 this month to this fund, and let's say our goal amount is $15,000. We've now set up that fund and we've contributed $1,500 to it. And I want to go back out to the main screen here, and you can see that now that we have input our $500 in giving for each of those categories, so $1,000 total, and $1,500 towards that fund, this number at the top here, which is now $12,700, is slowly going back down to 0. So again, the goal after you input all of your income is to get that number back down to 0 and get that green check mark that we saw earlier. And again, I highly recommend you check out this video because I also use a tool called SoFi Vaults through my SoFi bank accounts that allows me to track and really separate these different funds within my bank account. Because remember, EveryDollar is not a bank account, it is just a budgeting app. So feel free to add lines for whatever savings goals you were saving up for, whether that's a vacation, setting money aside for taxes, or any of that kind of stuff. But if we scroll down a little further, the next category is housing. So in our case, I know that our mortgage is $2,958.75 every single month. And what I'm going to do for this one is actually click on it. And I know that this is due on the 1st of every single month. So in this case, you can see that I have it set to repeat monthly, and I have it set to May 1st. But again, you can set this to whatever date that recurring transfer goes out on. And you can also toggle on a reminder to let you know that this money is about to leave your account. Again, this is not a bill payment feature. It is not a bank account. There's no money moving in or out of EveryDollar. It is just a way of reminding you when those bills are due. All right, so let's select done and go back out to our housing tab. And now what I'm going to do is just guesstimate what my other utility bills are going to be, and I'll have more exact numbers later on, but just off the top of my head, let me input those really quick. All right, so those are roughly all of the utilities that I can remember off the top of my head. But again, you can always click add line item, you can add whatever you want, and you can also swipe to the left and delete any bills that you don't need, because again, it's just giving you those canned categories since this is a brand new budget. So instead of making you sit here and watch me input my entire budget, we're actually gonna flash forward to the current month so that you can see my exact numbers. But again, just scrolling through here, you can see all these different canned categories for lifestyle, health, insurance, debt, and all of that good stuff. So again, you're just gonna click on that dollar amount, input the number that applies to you, and slowly work your way towards getting that zero-based budget. Last thing I wanna point out before we move on to the spending tab is, as you can see below a lot of these different line items, you can see that it has the due dates. And the reason that is in there is it's going to be so much easier month to month if you set up those recurring transactions. Because what you just saw me do isn't that complicated, but it does take a little bit of time to set this up. But if you input all of those recurring transactions transactions, then all of those are going to carry over month to month. So when I create my January budget, it's automatically going to populate my mortgage and all of these different utilities and any other recurring transfer that I have set up in EveryDollar. All right, so moving on to the spending tab, we don't really have to change anything here, but what this tab is showing us is how much we have spent thus far for each of the categories that we created. And this is actually the only difference between the free and premium version of EveryDollar. So with the premium version of EveryDollar, which I believe is like $80 per year, which isn't that bad in my opinion, all of your transactions are going to automatically sync. But I do put an asterisk next to that one because, as I'll show you in a second, you are able to link many of your external accounts, but there are some account types that cannot be linked, and therefore your transactions will not automatically sync. And the reason for that is because Dave Ramsey is super anti-credit card. So if there is a company like American Express, for example, that is not supported by EveryDollar's syncing service, then you're not going to have those transactions automatically synced. So if we go over to the transactions tab, what happens is any transaction on any of those accounts is automatically pulled into here, and all we have to do is then drag and drop those transactions to their respective categories throughout the month. So if we go to groceries, for example, you can see that the green line is just past halfway, and we have budgeted $500 in that category. And if we click on it, you can see that we have $217.70 remaining, and you can see the 3 transactions this month that we have had in that particular category. But if we go to gas, for example, I already spent $50 on gas. That transaction is already in here, so because of that, we have $0 left, and the green bar fills the entire screen across. You're also able to bulk delete or bulk categorize transactions by, again, going to the transactions tab and hitting the select button in the top right hand corner of the screen. And from here you could select multiple transactions and click track, or you could select delete. So that is one thing I will point out, is if you are using credit cards, you will have to delete a number of transactions because, for example, we have our SoFi bank account synced in here, and we have our Chase credit card, for example, which is our Amazon Prime card. So what happens is the credit card gets charged, and that shows up in here, but then we pay off the credit card, so it shows up from the bank accounts, and also a negative balance because we paid off the balance on the credit card. And I know this sounds really confusing, but basically you get 3 transactions for 1 purchase, and that's really confusing. I know other platforms like YNAB have a cleaner way of fixing this, but again, because the people behind EveryDollar is Ramsey Solutions, and they are super anti-credit card, they don't really have a good solution for this, and that's also the reason why I have to manually input my American Express transactions, because this does not sync with American Express. But honestly, manually entering those transactions is not that difficult, so just as an example, let's go back to the groceries category, and I just ran to the store really quick and got some milk. So all we have to do is click the blue plus icon in the bottom right corner. I bought 2 gallons of milk that was like $8.50. And then I can put in the categories. So I'm just going to put milk. You can also change the date. And again, in this case, this is an expense, but you could also input income this way as well. And then I just click done, and that has now automatically been added to that category. So yes, it is a little bit less convenient than having that transaction automatically come in here and having to just drag and drop it. But for $80 a year, it's really not that inconvenient to manually enter those transactions. And it could be a good way for you to try out the app and see what you think. And I do think that they have a free trial as well. So really, it doesn't hurt to give it a shot and see what you think of the platform. All right, so heading back to the spent tab, you can see that so far this month we have spent $9,407 of the $15,000 of planned income that we input in the planned tab. And again, this isn't where you're necessarily going to change things in your budget, but it does allow you to keep track of where you have spent money so far. And then obviously, if you select the remaining tab on the right-hand side, it's just going to show you how much you have remaining in each spending category. So I know this might seem a little bit confusing, but honestly, I've used a lot of other budgeting platforms, and it is way more simple than other ones like YNAB, in my opinion at least, and I have done a full review comparing those platforms if you did want to check that out. But the next thing I want to show you is the accounts tab, and I know we looked at this already, but if you click the plus icon in the top right-hand corner of the screen, this is where you are going to link new accounts. So I hate to use this as an example, but let's say I want to link a Wells Fargo account. Not that I would be caught dead with a Wells Fargo account, but we're going to search Wells Fargo, and there we go, it pops up. You select that, and similar to the Plaid system, this is going to use Finicity, Finicity, I don't know. And all you do is then log in with your Wells Fargo account in this example, but they link with thousands of different financial providers. So again, just search your banking provider and hopefully you should be able to log in with your banking credentials. Again, though, that is just if you have the premium version of EveryDollar. Otherwise, you're not able to sync your third-party accounts. And really, you're not going to spend a whole lot of time anywhere else in the app, but they do have this Insights tab, which is kind of helpful, but it's actually a lot of information on a small screen in my opinion, and this is where the desktop platform can be incredibly helpful. So I'll show you that in a second, but you can see you can have your spending totals, your spending breakdown, your monthly income, your income versus spending ratios. So it is helpful to have this information, but let's hop into the desktop because it's way easier to view all of it there. All right, so here we are. Everything looks pretty much the same as it does in the app, and that is something that I love about EveryDollar is if you change something on your phone, it automatically will update immediately on the desktop, and if I change something here, it will show up immediately on my wife's phone and vice versa, so that is really, really helpful, and all you have to do is log in with the same EveryDollar credential. So just like the app, you have your income at the top here, and then all of our different spending categories that we already went through. But on the right-hand side here is where you basically have your insights, and you also have an insights tab all the way on the left, and this is going to give you that really detailed breakdown of all of your different spending categories, income streams, and this can be incredibly helpful in showing you how much you were spending in different spending categories and tracking your income over time, but it's only helpful if you're looking backwards. So the reason I say that is you can see October and November, for example, for our income is in here, but because we're only partway through December when I'm recording this video, our full December income is not yet in here. But at the top, the best category is the spending totals, and this shows you how much you were spending in different spending categories. So over the past 3 months, my wife and I have spent about $27,000 across these different categories. You can also break it down by each category with the spending breakdown tool, and overall, this is a really clean layout compared to other platforms I've seen like Quicken, for example, and it does just give you a quick snapshot of where you're spending your money, where your money is coming from, and therefore you can make adjustments as necessary. Other than that, the desktop platform specifically works in pretty much the same exact way, and you can create your budget on here, and it's really intuitive and easy to drag around different categories, input the different names of each line item, input the dollar amounts, and basically do everything that you can on the app as well. So it's really up to you and how you want to handle that. Personally, I like the app better, but that's totally up to you. Now, you also have all of these other tabs over here on the left, and to show you all of those, I actually want to hop back into the application. So the last tab is the Profile tab, and as you can see, all of the different menu items here are exactly what we just saw in the desktop platform. Now, not all of these are going to be super useful, and most of them are fairly self-explanatory, but a few that I want to point out is, first of all, the Make a Feature Request option. And this sounds ridiculous, but it actually is incredibly helpful, and EveryDollar's customer service has been amazing in my experience. And lastly, I'll show you the Learn to Budget option, and these are helpful videos from Rachel Cruz, who's a Ramsey personality, and she can actually walk you through in more detail exactly how to best use the app. Although hopefully after watching this video, you have a pretty good understanding of how it works. All right, I know that was a lot to cover in one video, and again, if you want to see a deeper dive into exactly how I do my budget, including all of the different financial tools, not just EveryDollar, or if you want to see a deeper review style video on EveryDollar, then I do highly recommend that you check out those previous videos as well. So between these different videos, you should have a pretty good idea of exactly how to make your budget. And again, be patient with yourself, give yourself some grace. It is going to take you a few months to figure out how all of this works, but in my opinion, EveryDollar is the best budgeting app that I have used, and again, they have never paid me a dime. I don't have an affiliate link or sponsorship or anything with them. I just really like the platform, and I have used basically every other popular budgeting app, and this one's the best in my opinion. But I'd love to know what you think of EveryDollar down in the comment section below, and again, be sure to check out those other videos that I have mentioned, as well as my favorite financial tools using the links down below the like button. As always, take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.